everybody. I'm Audrey Moore with Audrey Helps Actors Podcast. Woo-hoo! 2022! Looking at you. Pew, pew. Choo, choo. Wow, New Year. What you gonna do? 2022. All right, so our new season officially starts in March. We are getting ready for Market Research March in prep for Self-Tape May 2022. But I know that it's a new year. Everyone wants to get it going and have some inspiration. So I'm re-airing our last season's Get Your Shit Together series. This is several episodes. Lots of actors who did what it took to get their shit together and then they got working. So this is for you. They are so inspirational, so exciting. I love you. New episodes in March. I will talk to you soon. All right, get your shit together. I don't know what that sound is. It's like a explosion of joy for your new year. Get it, book it. Hi, everybody. I'm Audrey Moore with Audrey Helps Actors, and this is episode number 68. Feeling great. I hope you are. And if not, I hope this makes you feel great now. Yay! 68. On today's episode, we have Eden Marryshow. Eden Marryshow. He is just as exciting and incredible as that fantastic name. He's really like the gateway to joy and happiness in the land of Eden. That is how highly I think of the great Eden Marryshow. So Eden and I have been friends, and he has had such a great journey. And for those of you, you're working actors, you've been working, and you want to get to that next level, go from being somebody who maybe is booking here or there to somebody who has some consistency in their booking. That's what he managed to do, and I was so inspired watching him really level it up to that next place. So often as actors, we get to the next level, and then we just feel like, I don't know what happened. I don't know how to get further up, and he has done such a fantastic job, and there is no stopping him. So excited for you to enjoy this episode. Special shout out again to everyone who keeps sending reviews. OMG, I love your reviews. Getting reviews from all of you is like walking into Target and them just Target giving you a $500 gift card and just being like, hey, it's pandemic time. I want you to go buy as much comfort as you possibly can. That's how much your reviews mean to me. So shout out to Sarah Gardner Artist, Jen Pay, Embo Baggins, Natalie 1234, Full 134, Shanta P, Sincerely Live, Joal, Zach Shane, Samantha Cade. You guys, these reviews really do mean so much to me. I just can't tell you enough. And when you send me messages on Instagram, you send me an email and you're like, oh my God, Audrey, thank you so much for this podcast. You don't understand. It's got me through my commute or whatever. It helps me get through my walking the dogs. I so love that. And I love it even more when you write that as an Apple Podcast review. I will take both. But I really love it when you guys leave me a review. It really helps with the algorithms. It also just really warms my soul. And I'm telling you, Jessie will be like, hey, did you see we got another? That's my Jessie for voice always. Hey, did you see we got another review? And I'm like, oh my God, we got another review. And then we canoodle and just think about how grateful we are that, we are getting this positive feedback, and the algorithm is just helping people spread the word so that the podcast can continue to spread information, inspiration, and camaraderie to this community. This episode is brought to you by Greg Saffel at singinglessonslosangeles.com. You know how important I think your voice is. This is body and voice. As an actor, you use your body to communicate and your voice to communicate. Every year, it's new year, new you. And let me just tell you, working on the voice is so freeing, like resonance. Oh, sweet, loving resonance. I love vocal resonance. It just soothes me so much. I couldn't recommend it more highly. SingingLessonsLosAngeles.com. Also brought to you by Carla Zuniga Hair. That's Carla Zuniga Hair. You can find her on the Instagram. She is fantastic. She does my hair. She does all kinds of people's hair. She is really great at specificity. That's why I went to Carla initially, was I needed somebody who could really give me a real specific cut that had a lot of versatility. She's super safe. She is Pregos McGee, so congratulations to you, Carla. And she will be taking some time off, so get in now. And she is doing cuts outside, masks and all, very safe, very COVID compliant. Carla Zuniga Hair. All right, you guys, I hope you got a self-tape today, and I hope that you book it. I've been posting a lot of self-tapes on the gram that I've booked, so I hope you're enjoying those. Book it!
Audrey helps actors because they don't know anything.
Hi, everybody. I'm Audrey Moore with Audrey Helps Actors, and today we have...
Eden Marryshow.
Hi, Eden.
Hello.
Hi. So I'm so glad that you could come on today. Thank you so much for joining us.
I'm so grateful to be here, man.
So I'm doing a Get Your Shit Together series. And so this is for actors who find themselves in a place of either... maybe being one level of their career, trying to get to another level career, whether that's like they can't get arrested in town, trying to get their first credits, or actors who are like maybe in their guest star and trying to move into their series regular or anything like that. And I have over the last several years, and I have watched you really, just when you think you can't get sharper and more focused and get more traction, you do. And I would love for you to talk about that today, because I think in addition to a lot of actors listening who are maybe in the place where their resume doesn't match their capabilities, they don't have a lot of auditions, there are a lot of listeners who also audition and have resumes and book, and they're trying to get to that like next place of maybe more consistent bookings or getting what they need in terms of clarity and focus. So that's why you're here today. You also, I know, work a lot with a conservatory in New York and transitioning actors from the conservatory life into the professional life. And so I'd love for us to discuss that as well. And you also came from like another life. You had another life before acting. We get a lot of listeners who are in that position. And I'd love for you to talk about the transition of coming from one business to another business and the things that you feel like helped or hindered that transition.
Cool. Let's get it.
Let's get it. Okay, so let's start with who you are. Are you represented? What kind of reps do you have? Maybe pre-COVID and during COVID. How many auditions do you get in a week? Are you union? What unions are you a part of? All of that.
Yeah, I'm rep by Headline Talent and then commercially through CESD and voiceovers. Mm-hmm. During COVID, there haven't been a ton of auditions for me. But again, too, like if I say a ton, like to one person, that means one thing, and to another person, that means something else. Mm-hmm. I have not been auditioning every week.
And before, you were at least once a week.
The average, sometimes, I'll get like 7 auditions in a month. Sometimes I will get 1 audition in a month. Yeah, during COVID, there definitely been a lot less auditions. But one of the advantages that I do enjoy the Zoom version of the auditioning process. As much as I love being in the room, it's a different kind of control than even like a self-tape.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Well, you're also a filmmaker, I want to point out.
Yeah,
and I think that really empowers you to use the frame. Like you understand about using the frame in a way that maybe another actor doesn't.
Yes. There's just more freedoms for me, because you're saying, I have this film background, like, for one audition, it was like a found footage. And there was this kind of wild story I had with my dad that kind of opened my eyes to things. And it was just one of those things where I was like, no, I'm coming to this to show them what I have. It's not about like what I think the person wants. And it's about like what I have to offer. I've been doing this a long enough time to where I'm just like, okay, it's also not what my agents want. It's not what my manager wants. It's like, this is my version of what I would do for the part, and here it is. So like with this one very specific role, it was a found footage role. And what I did was, my beautiful partner, Sesa, who was recording me, I just had her shake the camera.
Yeah. See, I love that.
Yeah, the whole time. It was just like, again, like I got, there was a little bit of pushback, But I'm just like, no, that's what I want to do. Like, move the camera. I know the world. I know the story you're trying to tell. I know what genre this is. I know what movies you're looking at. Yeah, so that's like one real example of like how I use the Zoom to my advantage, you know?
Now, how many total auditions would you say you get in a year, including voiceover, commercial, and theatrical?
Maybe like 35.
Great, yeah. And of those 35, what is your general booking-ish ratio?
Maybe only like 15%.
That's very good.
But that's the thing. It's like kind of like playing baseball. It's like, yeah, if you have a 5% booking rate, you're like a working actor. It's kind of wild.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and people don't realize, too, this is something that's like kind of an advanced discovery as you start working, is that like you actually can't work more than a certain level because like if you book a job that films in like 2 months, say, then a lot of times reps don't want anything to get in the way of that. Like they don't want job number 1 shoots in 60 days and job number 2 is slated to schedule in 30 days and you're in one episode to shoot for 10 days. But they don't want anyone to be in the position where now you're filming for 10 days and then they want you for more episodes, but then you are committed to this other job.
Yeah.
And then some conflicts arise and like, you know, a good rep will work with that. But I do think that there's this thing that I've sort of discovered with my friends that are working actors, this kind of this cap. It's like you can't work while you're also working.
That's a great point. I was in a Broadway show for months. I mean, before COVID hit. So yeah.
Exactly.
Yes.
You've had a really great journey, I would say, over the last couple of years of really doing this thing you just talked about of like owning your artistry and like owning your craft. I feel like it helps you like level up from somebody who was booking, like nobody would say you were booking, to being somebody who really started like throwing down on another level and getting results to show for it. Do you want to talk to the actors out there about maybe what you've learned about how high the bar really is and how you have changed maybe your preparation to go from even being a working actor to a more consistent working actor?
Taping your audition before you actually do the audition, right? Like, I mean, it's a different time now, but that idea of like when I was going in the room, like, dude, tape yourself and see how you look.
Was there any specific instances where that really helped you with the audition execution?
I think the biggest part of the taping yourself is just this meat suit that we walk around with all the time is so scared of the unknown. And it's also a thing that keeps us from not going toward our dreams, right? But the cool thing about taping yourself, I mean, in this post-COVID world, I don't know what's going to be, but even if you go into a Zoom audition, the thing about taping yourself first is you're letting your body know you've already done it.
Oh my God. I don't think anyone said that on this podcast before, and I think that's so real.
Yeah, and it's just like that kind of thing, a condition in your body. It's just like, it calms you down. It's like, okay, you don't have to freak out right now, body. You don't have to get you can get a little nervous, but look, you did this before, you saw it, you did it again. Like you're gonna go into this room and it's gonna be the same thing. And there's really something to that with the nervous system.
Do you ever play with like behavior or props and test that out to see if it works and like change and alter and all of that when you're taping?
Definitely.
To go to when you're pre-taping?
Yes, definitely. Again, it's just like something might be too big in the frame. Something might be too small in the frame. You might want to bring attention to something.
Or is it in the frame? I discover that all the time. It's like, I have this great prop and you can't see it the whole time.
Yeah, you can't see it. Yeah. No, definitely. Another thing is just the idea of like recognizing what your superpower is. And just like what you think you bring to it. And for me, it was just like to everything I want to bring, just in everyday life, is just always heart, vulnerability, because you can't really have heart without vulnerability. And now when I look at things, I'm just like, okay, that's the piece of Eden that I can bring to everything. That kind of just makes it a little bit different. Whether I'm in It's a Wonderful Life or I'm playing like a villain. I mean, it's just, you can always bring that.
Yeah. And we should mention to those listening that you are in New York. Do you want to tell people about what you sell sort of externally? You're a big guy.
I mean, right now, maybe I have a couple COVID pounds. I'm 6'2", 210 pounds. So in the acting world, I'm a giant. Maybe not in real life, but like in the acting world, I'm usually the tallest person in the room. It's interesting. I mean, the package you bring into the room, right? There are just so many things that people assume. I'm black. I have a maybe it's not that as hardcore as I think, but I have a Brooklyn accent. So when I started off with all this, there were definitely roles that I went in for that I definitely had hard conversations with people about like why I will not go in for this part. A lot of thug number 1, thug number 3 kind of crazy shit, you know what I mean? Where it's just like my thing is just like, yo, I have to go home. Like I have to go back to my neighborhood. I have to go back to my students. Like you mentioned it earlier, but I was an educator for 10 years and it wasn't like I was a teaching artist later on, but I'm talking about like hardcore. Like I was a paraprofessional. I was a teaching assistant with the Board of Education in Far Rockaway, Queens. What's up, P256, if anybody's listening? I love y'all. The reason why I'm doing this. Yeah, so it was just the idea of like, you go and you play these kind of two-dimensional characters that kind of hurt the narrative of people that look like me. Just like sometimes you just gotta say no, Then I had a really good friend of mine who's a serious working actor who is darker skinned than me, had to go through more stuff than I've had. The way he found his way in is to say, okay, my job is to bring the third dimension to them. And for me, that way is through my vulnerability and my heart.
In your heart.
Yeah. Not to say, and I think either choice is valid. And then just going back to what we were talking about earlier, it's just like, am I going to go in for less roles? Yeah, probably. That's why I have to be more prepared.
Yeah.
And I did, there definitely were when I first started, there were, like 1 or 2 roles that I took that maybe in retrospect was like, but I was where I was at. So I was like, okay, cool, And then the other thing too is just like, when you get in the rooms with these casting directors, making those relationships or setting yourself up for something different. So like what I did initially was I grew my hair. Like my hair was ridiculously long and kind of like just boof.
Shagged out.
Yeah, because I said, okay, I'm going to look so different that when they need like an oddball or somebody like that to kind of like jump into a part, because I had no representation and I had no connections, it was like, okay, this dude will stick off the page. We'll put him in. Yes. He'll say 1 line or 2 lines, whatever. And that was kind of my way in. And I was like, all right, I'll get to know folks. I'll get in these audition rooms. And then it got to a point, maybe a couple years in, and I was like, okay, now's the time to shave my head.
I love that you brought this up because I just yesterday am recording another episode with somebody else. We talked about this, about like making a dramatic visual change that kind of maybe isn't your personal preference and choice, but will stand you out visually. And in a lot of the smaller roles, it's just like either fade away, like I don't even want to remember that you were here, just come in, drop a check and go, or really stand out in something that's like, oh yeah, this person saying this line is just interesting because of this hair and this outfit. And then you were able to let it go, because I think a lot of people are really scared to make those really drastic choices because they don't want to then have that weird hair or that weird outfit or whatever forever. But I experienced what you experienced, which is like, then you let it go. You get the resume, you take the credits, and then you can slowly but surely just drop it off to the side.
Yeah, and I guess I was less kind of like nervous or got weirded out about it because it was strategic. It was just like, okay, I'm going to do this for this amount of time. I'm going to get in here. Yes. I'm going to get in these offices multiple times so they can see that I'm not a weirdo. Because I think that there's a weirdo factor that like people don't respect. It's like,
You're so right.
Yeah.
You're so right. Like, who are you and can I possibly trust you on a set?
Exactly. Yeah. And I feel like that's the reason for the credits. It's just like when you see something, when you see a reel that's like, oh, this looks like it was professionally made. Okay, they didn't do anything crazy, potentially. You know, and if you see it multiple times, it's like, okay, yeah, man. So, I just think that weirdo factor doesn't get respected. And for me, it's just like, okay.
So real.
Yeah, the more you can get in front of these people and show that you're just a professional and whatever neuroses you have is just like introverted and kept to yourself, just the better.
But wait, Eden, wait. You just tall, handsome drink of water, you. I have to interrupt you.
Help me. I need some help.
And now it's time for listener questions.
I'm so scared.
This listener question is brought to you by singinglessonslosangeles.com. That's singinglessonslosangeles.com. The one, the only, the man, the myth, the legend, Greg Saffel. You guys, I'm telling you, Greg is so great. Also, I just want to like really shout out for a second about like, I was talking about like vocal resonance for a second. And I just have to say, Vocal resonance is just beautiful, and it is so comforting and can really help drop you into your body, into your character, into being present, into the present moment. If you're a singer, listen, singers got to sing. You got to get voice lessons. If you're an actor, and whether you have had extensive voice training or you are newer to the voice world, you've not done voice work, you've taken acting classes, you hit the gym like 6 hours a week, or your personal at-home gym, pandemic time, then, you have to spend some time on your voice, on your breath capacity, and vocal resonance, your ability to vocally express yourself is so key. We have so many habits that we learn growing up of constricting our breath, tightening our throat, all these things that really constrict your access to your emotions and to your impulses. And the body and voice, they are so connected. I can't recommend more highly to work with somebody on your voice. Greg Saffel is so fantastic. He gets incredible results. Check him out, singinglessonslosangeles.com. He does it all virtually. That was already set up beforehand. Greg Saffel, singinglessonslosangeles.com. Also, if you have a listener question, please call 667-ACTOR-70. That's 667-ACTOR-70 for all your listener question needs.
Hey, Audrey. This is John Wincher calling from the edge of a peanut field in South Georgia. I have a question. Let me tee it up with my situation. So I was in Los Angeles for 10 years and had to move away several times, so lost momentum often. But I finally got with an upper mid-level management company, like real players. They rep me for 6 months, and then they said, no one will see you because you have 0 television credits. So I moved to Atlanta. I've been here 5 years. And it's been great. I racked up 6 or 7 co-stars, a recurring and a guest star. I get great auditions all the time. My personal life has been wonderful. I met my wife here, et cetera, et cetera. My question is, at what point do I redirect my attention back to Los Angeles? If I've learned anything from your show, it's that you don't wait around for someone else to come and grab you by the arm and pull you up to where you want to be. You got to do shit yourself. So that's my question, and maybe briefly how you would recommend going about that. Is it just a matter of sending my materials out to my contacts and representation, or if there's anything else I should be doing? I'm a huge fan of the show. If you play this on your show, I will totally geek out. No pressure. Keep doing what you're doing. I love what you do. Thanks.
Okay, so I love this question. And, I think this is a hard question right now because there's like COVID times versus non-COVID times. So what I'm seeing right now happen a lot is some management companies that are bigger name management companies are actually reaching out to some local hire actors in the smaller markets who have some momentum. So people in New Mexico, people in Atlanta or Georgia, and they are grabbing onto that momentum and moving it forward. I'm seeing that happening. So that's actually my recommendation to you. Maybe the contact that was like, listen, I just can't really do anything for you here in LA. Maybe you should call that person again and say, it's been 5 years. I've got a lot of momentum going. I'm looking at getting my resume and everything leveled up and continuing this growth. And I know a lot of people are hooking up with some Los Angeles representation in the management department. I wondered if maybe you and I could have a conversation about that. That's probably something I would go for. Even some of your friends who are working in the Atlanta market a lot probably already have some good management representation in a larger market. And that's actually what I would recommend. Start there. And they may tell you, it's time to get to LA, or they may not. It's something to consider with regards to Los Angeles. In COVID, it's just really like, unless you're here, they're not having you here. And that's true for all the markets right now. There's local hire, and then there's like resident local hire. So you have to be living there. So depending on when you're listening to this episode, that may be relevant to you still. But even without the pandemic, I would say getting a good manager in a larger market and sort of teaming with them and navigating the growth, you may not have to move back to LA. I have friends that work consistently, and they don't live in LA anymore. They have moved out. So that's something to consider. It kind of depends on what your genres are. Los Angeles is a comedy town. There's 38 comedies shooting in Los Angeles. There's 4 shooting in New York City. So not high numbers in comedy in New York. And if you're looking at things that are shooting in Canada when things open back up, or some of the grittier, maybe streaming video on demand stuff, if your goal is to live in Los Angeles, that's one thing. But if your goal is to actually just get better money and better opportunities and better sized credits, that may be something that you don't have to come back to LA for, just depending on how things settle after and during this pandemic. But my biggest recommendation is look at a lot of the actors that you see who are booking in your local market, and you will see that they are being represented by some larger management firms. And just maybe reach out to some of them and give it a go and see if you can work with a manager to navigate your expansion. All right, I hope that's helpful.
And now back to your regularly scheduled program.
Now, what about this last thing that you had said about your superpower?
For me, it kind of just all doubles back to my purpose. I've spent a lot of time like, okay, like what am I here for, man? I literally just like on this planet, what am I here for? Yeah. And for me, I want to be the call to action. Like if I was in the hero's journey, Joseph Campbell style, it's just like, yeah, I'm on, like that's the number I want. I'm the call to action. And it's something that I wasn't always cool with. Because like, let's say watching The Karate Kid, right? Everybody wants to be Daniel-san. But I was always kind of like, went toward Mr. Miyagi. And I always had a problem with that. So even with like education and stuff like that, it was always like, yeah, but I have this other dream. And then I was watching Karate Kid, and it's just like, who's the last person you see on screen? It's Mr. Miyagi with his arms folded, nodding to a blackout. So for me, it was just like trying to figure out what it was. It's like, I want to be the call to action. Like I want to be the kindling. Like I know I'm not the fire in somebody's belly, but I want to get it going. I want to be the greatest cheerleader that ever lived.
What I love about what you just said is you're attaching it to story, which I think is so fucking smart. Eden, it's like you are a filmmaker and a writer and a producer. It is so smart because you can really identify in every story which role is yours.
Yes, let's get it.
Because you know what to bring to it. And I remember when Jesse broke down story in our Finding Nemo episode, and he said you're either helping a character on their journey, like the protagonist on their journey, or you're hindering them from the journey. And you sort of like have to know in the story which one you are. And I realized like, oh, Audrey helps actors.
That's what I'm saying. Audrey
I'm
helps
always
actors.
the helper.
Yes.
Like I'm the helper. I'm almost always helping somebody, helping the protagonist along the way. Very rarely am I the hindrance. I have been a couple times.
Of course.
But I find the more I'm actually talking and less just like giving angry looks. But if I have more lines and more story, like Audrey, bring a similar sort of vivaciousness, cheerleading, go-get-emer sort of quality that lends itself to pushing the protagonist forward.
Yeah. And it's really interesting, right? Because like we talked about this before, but you know, like you said, I'm 6'2", I'm over 200 pounds. I have melanin in my skin. If I'm not properly hydrated, I get dark circles under my eyes. So, you know, the media has taught people to be fearful of somebody that looks like me. And my thing is like, okay, all right, if I'm going to play a character like that, yeah, I'm going to bring my heart to it like a fucking Care Bear.
Yes.
So I think that you're helping me articulate it, but it is that. It's like, yeah, find out who you are, find out what character and stories you gravitate toward. That is a way in to kind of figure out, okay, like where do I, even if this is not on type, there's still that essence. What are your values? What do you care about?
I always tell people like, you're Eden Marryshow. Like that is who you are. Like you're like the happiest gateway to the happiest land. That's literally in your name. And yet you have this external package. And I think like, yeah, God is so good in putting those two things together. And knowing what the outside articulates versus what the inside essence is. And then how to wield those weapons to help you book jobs. Do you have any specific instance where you feel like you wielded those two things to help you get the job?
Well, I think on the last job that I got, it's just like this really kind of like aggressive New Yorker that doesn't care, that's running a building kind of deal. And I got a note from the director that was just like, in this moment, you really feel at least outwardly, at least what the audience feels, is like you really do feel for her. And you really do care about what's happening. And I was able to say, that's right. That's my superpower. Like,
Yes.
I'm having this hard exterior, but it's just like, no,
this moment.
Yeah, in every scene, there's a moment where you can just give him a little bit and just say like, oh, this guy, does he care? This is messing with me on the insides. And I think that's what we were talking about in that conversation. I think you might have said that. It was just like, you just find that moment to use your superpower. And for me, like hearing superpower is everything,
lit you up.
Yeah, lit me up, lit me right up.
Yeah, I feel like for people to have some more context on that, I have such a soft exterior. I have like these cherub eyes and these little freckles, and I have this really warm voice, and I use my hands all the time to talk like a crazy person. And then I'm often cast as a person who maybe does a bad thing or something because you don't expect it. And so understanding like that's a real advantage and a superpower to me.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, so I'd love to talk about these classes that you sort of are now an educator for, helping transition conservatory students out of the conservatory and into the professional world.
Yes.
What do you have for the listeners who are experiencing a transition from education into being a professional actor? What are some general things that you feel like you gotta know this, you gotta work on this, these are requirements that you have to take seriously that maybe they don't understand yet?
I think, one, I just want to say off the jump, if you're out there and you're thinking about doing it, you can do it. Secondly, it's going to be as hard as you think it is, probably harder.
Harder.
That's okay because you're built for this. The other thing I would say is, I think the thing that helped me the most is, outside of anything really technical, is just like getting in touch with why you're going to do it.
Yes.
The why, to me, is the fuel for your dreams. What I talk to my students a lot is just the idea that why comes from the Latin entheos, which means divinely possessed. And if you are going to go after something like this, you have to be divinely possessed. So one, you got to first know what you want. Then in order to make it activated, you have to get divinely possessed. And how you do that is through your why. Why am I doing this? So for me, why I left the Board of Education is, long story a little bit short, I had a student, Latina Peanut Bilbro, who I taught from the time she was 8 years old and I was 18 until she graduated from elementary school. So when you work with at-risk children, let's call them right now, you're with them for years if they work well with you. So she was my baby. If I was old enough, she would have felt like my daughter. And she believed in my dreams. So she would always be like, yo, Marryshow, you can make movies. Like, you can be in movies. Like, I believe in you. Fast forward to her 18th birthday, I was driving with my dad and got a phone call that she had been killed in a drive-by. Yeah, man, for me, that was the turning point. So anybody knows me knows the story. It's just like, I just looked at her in her casket and I just said, I'm gonna make this dream happen. That's it, to keep my promise. And the reason why I say that is everybody's why is not gonna be like that, but your why has to have that kind of energy behind it. And whether it's one event or it's a million reasons, and it's something I struggle with, but even if it's shit that gets you angry, whatever it is just like, put it in the backpack. Just put it in your backpack, whatever it is, because you need the fuel. Like, you can't put gasoline in a DeLorean and expect to go back to the future. You need motherfucking plutonium. And that is emotional. It's always emotional. Yeah, and if you think about if you want to be an actor or a creator or whatever, you got a shit ton of emotion. So it's directing that and it's thinking about that. And for me, it's just like things you do every fucking day or start off doing it once a week. But there are things that, like, as you jump into this career that I did every day just to remind myself, like, dude, you are not a piece of shit. Like, dude, you actually can do this. To quiet the voices in the head. You wake up in the morning, you could do it in any kind of order you want to. So for me, it's like, you meditate for 20 minutes. I do this thing called transcendental meditation or finding an app or whatever it is, right? To calm the mind. Then there's gratitude, or you can start with something that I call experientialization. It's more than a visualization because you're using all of your senses. A lot of us just listen to all the bullshit we say to ourselves all the time.
I remember hearing, and I thought it was so well put, this saying of like, you're always creating. You're either creating consciously or you're creating unconsciously. So you might as well create consciously towards the thing that you want, because we have thoughts happening all day in our heads. And those thoughts are creating this sort of like magnifying glass of our minds. So it's pointing our attention. Your mind is looking for the thing that you're thinking about. And so you can either do that on accident and be looking at things and finding things that you don't want to look at or find, or you can do it deliberately and your mind will start seeking out the things that it wants to
That's
find.
right. And those subconscious things that you're looking at, that's your mom, that's your dad, that's your sister that was always a pain in the ass, that's your fourth grade teacher that told you were never going to amount to shit, right? So what I think you're talking about, Audrey, is like, yeah, that idea of every day I'm choosing.
Every
I'm
day.
making a conscious choice. And again, like, I'm not going to be one of those people who say, you got to do it every single motherfucking day. It's like, yo, dude, start off once a day for a minute and a half.
Yeah.
Like, nobody expects you to go out and run a marathon and you haven't crawled.
Yeah.
Like, just start crawling. So for me, it's just like, it's experientializations, it's incantations. Because the thing, too, is like, I think about these things and I go through like my best possible life, and then somebody's just like, well, what happens if you don't get the part and they tell you no? Well, at least I got to experience it for fucking 10 minutes. It's high intention, low attachment.
so real.
And you're conditioning your nervous system for good shit to happen.
I love that.
Yeah, I do a lot of incantations as well in the morning. So what do I want to be? If I'm not that right now, okay, what do I want to be? Every time I'm in someone's presence, whether it's for a second or an eternity, whether they're a perfect stranger or a best friend, in my presence, they feel loved, cared for, appreciated, special. And I feel all those same things.
That's why I'm such a big fan of exactly what you're calling it. I call it pre-paving. Pre-pave the road you're trying to get to. And if you want 4 auditions a week, you practice 4 auditions a week. If you want to be a series regular, you start working on series regular material. Whatever it is, the place you want to go, you start literally exactly what you're saying, putting your body in the position to understand what that is, feel comfortable with that is, receive what that is. And we're not making up hippie shit here. There's science behind it. You guys go and like investigate the science. If it seems wooey for you, I want you to know, like, yes, there are people who make it wooey, but it is scientifically, biophysically in your mind and body proven, the wiring and the routing that starts to happen when you start doing something consistently and your body starts understanding that this is like, oh, this is a thing that we do. I also like math, you guys. I like woo and I like math. I think they are in harmony.
I think they're saying the same thing, actually.
I agree.
Just a different way.
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree.
yeah, man.
Awesome. But wait, Eden, wait. You just tall, handsome drink of water, you. I have to interrupt you.
Help me. I need some help.
And now it's time for listener questions.
I'm so scared.
This listener question is brought to you by Carla Zuniga. That's Carla Zuniga Hair. You can find her on Instagram at Carla Zuniga Hair to schedule an appointment. She is pregnant and will be taking a couple months off starting in April, so I would get into her now. I've got to call her. I need a haircut, Carla. So to accommodate more clients price-wise, she has left and transitioned from the Benjamin Salon and is now taking clients on her own. So be sure to reach out to her directly via her Instagram account, Carla Zuniga Hair. On Instagram, she's fantastic. She is COVID compliant, outside, put your mask on. I love it when you guys tag me on Instagram that you just got Carla to cut your hair. Especially so many of you people I know are like, oh my God, I've been growing out this hair for a year now and I just like want to like chop it all off. Okay, just like be smart about it and also go with somebody who can maybe give you a really versatile look. You know, something that I love talking to Carla about is how sometimes we have to have haircuts that aren't as fabulous as we would like them to be, but I want a haircut that can look a little bit more maybe middle American if I need it to be, and something that can look a little bit more Malibu if I need it to be. And a good haircut can do both and can help you style it in a way that it can have that kind of versatility. Something that maybe looks a little bit more hip and something that maybe looks a little bit more conservative even. That's a really great stylist. I couldn't recommend her more highly. Carla Zuniga Hair on Instagram. If you have a listener question, please call in 667-ACTOR-70. That's 667-ACTOR-70 for all your listener question needs.
Hey, Audrey. This is an old friend of yours. I'm an actress in Los Angeles. So basically, I recently reached out to an agent that I have a relationship with through my child, who's an actor, and inquired about meeting with an agent from that agency. She responded that now is not a good time during a pandemic to be seeking representation. So basically brushed me off a little bit, even though I had previously made some connections where they had told me to inquire about representation. So I thought I had an in, but she was pretty adamant that now is not a good time. Well, the next day I received an email from an agent just who knows my manager reaching out to me asking if I was interested in representation from him. I told him I needed some time to think about it after we had a Zoom meeting, just because the agency is not even a medium tier agency, I guess. It's like a pretty low one. So I was thinking, well, should I send out my materials to other agencies and see what happens before accepting this offer? Anyway, my question is this a bad time to be seeking representation during the pandemic? My reasoning for this question is that I'm just confused. I got mixed messages when one agency told me this is not a good time, and then the next day I received an inquiry from an agent asking if I was interested. So I'm just curious about your thoughts on that. All right. Hope all is well. Thank you so much. Keep doing what you're doing. You're amazing.
Hey girl, hey, you're amazing. And I believe that you just had like a pretty big win. So I'm not surprised that the agency thing is something that is on the train for you. The reason why you're getting mixed signals is because it's all a shit show. I mean, for lack of a better word, I mean, it's just, if you were Ryan Gosling's child, then I'm sure that they would meet with you and they would sign you. I'm sure that if you got an offer to be on a series regular on a new show on Netflix with J.J. Abrams executive producing, I'm sure people would meet with you. So when people tell you no, I think you can't take the no's always too personally, which is hard because sometimes the no is real and sometimes the no is just not interested. And they don't tell you, actually, you're just not exciting to us. And they won't tell you, actually, we just don't think we can make money off of you. My experience has been that reps in general, not just agents, are not so forthcoming. And so they say things like, you know, we have too many in your category, which sometimes is true. They may. Or they say things like, it's a pandemic right now. You know, it's not a good time to be reaching out to representation, which, again, that seems completely valid to me. They're trying to service the clients that they do have. However, if they looked at you and they thought, wow, this person, I could get them work like tomorrow, I think pandemic notwithstanding, they would take you and they would take the pandemic into consideration. So it's hard. It's hard. I think having your manager help you with the search, if that's something that you're comfortable with, that's something that can sort of take the onus off of you in terms of you being maybe like inappropriate. It's your manager's job to help get more coverage. And if that's something that they feel like they can do, I think that's good. In terms of whether or not you can get a different agent or another agent, you know, that's really something that you have to decide. I mean, as I recall, this win that you had is a really good win, and maybe it will open some more doors for you in terms of representation. You might want to say to your manager, hey, I don't want to say no to this person, but I want to see if maybe we can get one or two meetings. Is that a thing? Like, is that possible? Because that would be really great if we could maybe just take one or two meetings if you think that's something that can happen right now. It's so interesting. Like this phone call that you're having with me is really a phone call you should be having with your manager. So that also depends on how much you trust your manager and how much you think they are really knowledgeable or helpful in this area. It's complicated. I mean, great reps are hard to come by, and when you get them, it's just like, I love them. I'm so blessed to have the reps that I have now, and it was not a short journey to them by any means. So I think that's my answer. I don't know how helpful that is. I guess my answer is I would talk to your manager and see if you can maybe set up a few more meetings if they think that now is a time to do that. We are in the middle of a streaming war. And, you know, Los Angeles was shut down and now England is shut down. And then it's just like going to be this sort of game of whack-a-mole that's just going to happen until, you know, we're all vaccinated and we have herd immunity. So we're just going to have to wait and see. I think there's lots of work to be had. And if you are lucky enough to be with representation that is passionate about you and can help you get some more opportunities, you know, have an honest conversation with your manager. Do they think that this rep, even though they're not super high level, do they think they're passionate and have some connections and will make some phone calls and will get you in some rooms? All right, darling. I hope that's helpful.
And now back to your regularly scheduled program.
So now I want to just wrap up with our final questions. Do you have any questions for me?
When things do not go your way, right?
Yes. Yeah.
You still do them. Not why do you do it, but what is your thought process? Like when something does not go your way, like what are the thoughts happening that get you to, okay, I'm going to keep going?
Yeah, I would say a couple of things. A lot of what it sounds like you're talking about is like, if you get some rejection, how do I prevent that rejection from deteriorating my attitude and my execution the next go round? And like, what are the actual thoughts that I have to prevent that? So one of the things I tell myself is I know that when I start working on something, I don't want to work on it, no matter what the exciting opportunity is. I'm always like, I'm just like, oh God. And my attitude just starts to come in. And then what I do is I give myself an hour, and I can't be mad at myself until I've worked on it for a full hour. That's my rule with myself. If after a full hour working on it, I'm like, ugh, I just hate this thing, then I can just say I'm not going to do this. And that's never happened, just FYI. Because I always start working on it, and I love acting, and so I start working on it, and that works. Often it's other things in the way, like maybe I'm tired for a certain reason. That's very logical, you know, it's COVID, somebody I know died, I moved, or, you know, whatever, any number of things can happen. Or something that I was really looking forward to, like I'm throwing one of my best friends a baby shower, and now I have a series regular audition due in 12 hours. And I have to solve that. First of all, I say I don't leave it all up to my mind. I have lots of people that I call upon that if my attitude sucks, I call them. And I'm like, hey, got this audition. And I'm like, kind of not feeling it. And I just need somebody to like get my ball rolling. Can you read it with me and work it with me and help me find a way in to be excited? Another thing I do, part of my process, is when I sit down and do the table work, one of the first things I ask myself in the table work is, what's exciting to me about this role? What would be exciting for me about playing this person or telling this story? And sometimes it's honestly like, the money is really good on this one. And I'm like, kind of makes me excited. I kind of love money. And so sometimes I'm like, yeah, that's fun. Okay. Yeah, and that just like clicks it a little bit. I do that before I even start looking at what's the objective of the character, what's in the way, what's the most important line, what's the difference between the first scene and the second scene. I just sort of hook myself in to what, for me, is something that is exciting for me about this opportunity.
I love that you said, I don't leave it up to my mind. Like you told that's a nugget. Like, hell yes.
And I have a reputation reputation for being like a go-getter. And so I just want you guys to know, like, I am a go-getter. And even this like massive go-getter, like sometimes I'm tired and sometimes I'm grumpy because I had a disappointment and I feel like, what is it all worth? What are we even doing? And what's acting? I think that's good. I think it's good that people feel that way. It's honest.
Yeah, I always say to people, I'm like, would you watch a movie where everything was great in the beginning and then everything is great in the middle and then just like more amazing things happen at the end? No, it's like you need conflict, you need obstacles, you need drama. It's going to happen.
Yeah,
and the more we can get comfortable with that, you know, just like failure is feedback. It's like, it's good.
Yeah. And usually for me, the times when I have felt like I've most been embarrassed by a certain kind of failure, what it did is it helped me to really see that there was a new level that I wasn't ready for.
Oh my gosh.
And I was able to evaluate that and go, okay, that's a new level. Those amount of size of that caliber and that quality in that period of time, I wasn't ready for that. And now I go get ready. And then I book. It usually takes an opportunity that's just out of reach that you didn't realize was out of reach to then like knock you and then go, oh, I see, some adjustment has to happen here.
That happened to me big time.
Did it?
Big time.
Yep.
I had a series regular part, man. I walked in and I was not as prepared as I should have been. I had the director come up to me and say, hey, did you work on your lines?
Oh my God, I would die.
Oh.
I would just fucking die inside.
And he was just like, you should go to the trailer and work on them. This is my first day on set. He was completely right. But then I realized it was like, oh, I'm in a room with like 50,000. It seemed like it was 100,000 watts of lights in. My sugar dropped.
Yeah. Yes.
You know what I mean? These are a million lessons that I got from it. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Like, dude, you think you're prepared? That's not prepared. It's like what Jim Carrey said on Inside the Actor Studio when he was just like, yeah, get your scene right and then have tennis balls thrown at you. Because that's what it's going to be like on set.
I know. I do that. In my auditions, I have the reader read it poorly. If it's a comedy, I have them do unexpected laughs. I'll do it, and then I'll hit a line, and they'll be like, ha, 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 ha. And I have to be like, yeah, no, that's normal. Because that happens in some comedic auditions. Sometimes they laugh, and sometimes they don't laugh, and you don't know which one it's going to be. You got to get your body right to be ready for both. And if the reader is going to be like this, then you better practice once. Or if the reader's going to suddenly be talking really, really fast, and it's like, better practice once. Practice one standing, practice one sitting. All of those things. Because if you're ready to stand, they're going to ask you to sit. And if you're ready to sit, they are going to ask you to stand every fucking time. No question.
So true. And tape it.
Tape it. Tape both. And see how it works. Love this. Okay. What is the best part about the business for you?
My students reaching out to me and just say like, yo, Marryshow, you told us that we could go after our dreams and you did it. You said you were going to do it. That's it. And just like being able to call my parents and be like, yeah, we did it. The emotional component of it in that way. And just, again, it all goes back to why I'm doing it, I think. Yeah.
I love that. What is the hardest part about business for you?
Having to remember that failure is important.
Yeah. When you're an overachiever like you and me.
Yeah.
It's an important thing to remember.
Yeah, and I literally preach it all the time, selfishly, I think, as well, just so I can remember it. Les Brown said it, it's like, only people that don't fail are in cemeteries. It's so important to fail and fall flat on your motherfucking face. Repeatedly, it has to happen. There's no way around it. Like, because you'll learn 10 or 15 things that will take you 5 years to learn if you just keep putting your toe in the water. It's just like jump right in and understand all of these lessons. You can learn them a lot quicker. That's a big thing. That's a big.
Yeah, it's a big thing that they discuss in terms of the way America learns versus other cultures.
Yeah.
Is other cultures look at failure as like, yes, and now what? As opposed to, we have this thing of like, I'm bad at math, so I'm bad at math. As opposed to, you're bad at math because you haven't been taught math, and there's no expectation that you should be good at math because you're 6.
Yes.
And you don't know math.
You don't know math.
And in our culture, it's like, well, you're 6 and you don't know math. Like, you're not good at math.
You're a fucking loser. I feel like that very specifically goes to my mindset of just like, America's very much a fixed mindset society. That's why I really don't believe in talent. because it's either you're born with it or you're not. If you're not born with talent, you're not going to try hard because it doesn't make any sense. That's where laziness comes from. It's just like you're not good enough anyway. And if you do have talent, you're not going to work as hard because you don't want to get found out. You don't want to get found out as actually somebody that doesn't have talent, as opposed to a growth mindset, which is very much just like, I don't got it yet. Like that comma and that yet period is just like, but that brings a level of control. It's like, yes, I don't understand it yet. I can get there. And my understanding of talent comes from the Latin talentum, which means an inclination, a will, a desire. So if I have a desire or an inclination, I'll work at the thing and I'll get better. It's all about like believing that your effort will be rewarded.
Yeah.
To me.
And that's nurtured, I find. You nurture that.
Yes. It's your job. Yeah. Eventually, yeah.
What do you wish somebody had taught you or managed to get you to understand when you were just a wee babe entering this business?
What we just said. I mean, that your effort will get rewarded, and that it's just like, it's going to take a ridiculous amount of, yes. I wish all the younger actors that I know and I don't know and in between, it's just like, bruh, these people that are out there and they're 28 years old and they're cooking right now, they've been acting since they were 8. They put in 20. So they put in their 20 years. Exactly. And I don't want to discourage anybody at all because, listen, I'm the world ambassador for dreams. Like, I fucking believe in your dream. Like, I believe it. Like, yes, they found, I can't remember her name from The Professional, but they found her in a mall. Right. She was 12.
Yeah, exactly.
And the fact that there's something really awesome about that not happening. You can appreciate things more when you experience those really fucked up things that you really, really wanted and it went to somebody else or whatever. When you finally get it, it's just like, I fucking grinded for this.
I find it to be more satisfying. I mean, listen, I didn't get the like, and you're here. Oh, here's fame. Yes. So I don't know how it would have been otherwise. But I think not just me, but watching everyone that I've been rooting for so long, watching them become working actors, watching them go from working actors to working actors, that has been so rewarding and so much fun. It feels like really exciting for everybody. And even if somebody's having a bad year, you just feel like, yeah, no, you're having a bad year. Like, it's cool. And it's just easier on everybody. Yes. And we're just happier and we understand. It's like, you just get it.
Yeah. It's just, you're going to be doing this shit for the rest of your fucking life. I think that's another thing is like, just don't know that, like, this is not the last audition you'll ever get. Whether you create an audition for yourself or you get one. It's just like, it's all practice.
Exactly. That's exactly right. Thank you so much. That was not nearly long enough for you and I, but that's what we had.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be so inspiring to everybody. Just so you know, you inspire me all the time. I'm so happy that New York has you. I'm so grateful for every single life that you touch. You really do bring such inspiration and clarity and hope and passion to everybody that you touch. And I think that's such a gift.
I appreciate it. And I just want to say that this was one of my dreams being on this podcast. The first time I heard you, I was like, I'm going to get on that podcast. I don't know how. It's going to happen, though. So let's get it.
Let's get it. Get it. Next week on Audrey Helps Actors, we have the one, the only, Chuck Philippov. Chuck is so great. You guys are going to be really inspired by Chuck's journey. Chuck is another actor that just like, people were like, you're so great. And then I'm not going to represent you. And so he had to just like figure out what that was. What is the thing that made people love his work but not feel like they could invest in him? And he solved it. He solved it. And he is working and he's had some incredible wins. And he just went from somebody that people loved his work but wouldn't touch to somebody that, you know, has had multiple bookings and some double bookings, like been on set and